Charchian, co-host of the Friday Football Feast, joins 9 to noon now. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Paul. Very gallant of you to hit the studio coming off the plane. You're on 3 hours of sleep. Nicely done. Maybe less.
I appreciate you. What'd you think of the game? And just stream your consciousness, no matter where it takes you. Just be the Paul Charchian we have come to know and love.
I'm actively processing the loss right now, Paul. I've got a variety of symptoms. It's an upset stomach, dizziness, dry mouth, hives, constipation, insomnia, drowsiness, blood in my stool, tinnitus. It's not great right now. This was not the way that I'm less upset that the season is ending now than the way the season ended. And it calls into question a lot of things we'll be talking about for the next several months. The play calling by Kevin O'Connell was, I think, really, really non-dynamic, I guess might be a nicest way to put it. His quarterback was getting destroyed, and Kevin O'Connell simply didn't call enough quick hitting plays to get the ball out of Sam's hands quickly. I would have liked to have seen slants, screens, bubbles, whatever it takes to really get Sam in a position where he schematically will get rid of the ball too quickly. And obviously Sam held the ball, way too long. You can't take sacks when in 7 seconds in the pocket. Sacks are ridiculous. And Sam just needed to make more first read deliveries. So too many slow developing plays, and Sam needed to make quicker calls in the pocket. 9 sacks. We went Ed Rooney on our favorite team last night 9 times, and the interior of the Vikings offensive line just got overwhelmed, Paul. I feel like, you got 2 big offseason priorities. Cornerback, because we have none on roster. And then we just have to get better at guard, center, guard. And we'll be talking a lot about that when the draft gets closer, I think. It's, and then, the defense I thought played pretty well in this game. But they couldn't generate the big plays, and the one near miss that they had on the Blake Cashman touchdown called back. Still not clear as to whether or not that should have been called back, but just 2 sacks, no picks, no fumble recoveries, and a lot of questions, Paul. So it was a frustrating way to have the season end on these 2 bad games, and it's just again, I feel less bad about the fact that we lost and more about the manner of the loss.
If I were to proclaim now, with the right to change it during the course of the offseason, the quarterback room for the Minnesota Vikings, it's not, we're not going outside of the box here, super stridently. But the quarterback room would be J.J. McCarthy, Daniel Jones, and Brett Rippon. How does that hit you?
That sounds exactly right.
Right.
Maybe Nick Mullins is the third. There is now a scenario, Paul, where Sam Darnold stays as a backup.
Right.
This was not even remotely on our radar 2.5 weeks ago. But now there's a chance Sam Darnold does not land a starting NFL gig. And although I think he will, but there's still, I think the door is now open to him having to sign as a backup somewhere, and that would be our backup, right? I mean, if I'm rolling into next year with him as my backup, I feel pretty good. But the way you laid it out is I still think the probability is exactly what you just said, and it's JJ McCarthy time. I mean, I guess and I'm sure you've heard this a lot. I have too. It's all over. It's been all over social media for 2 weeks. At least we saw the other side of Sam Darnold before we had to pay Sam Darnold. And that's, I guess that's the silver lining, right?
Given the price tag for Darnold, it went from, being Louis Vuitton-esque to potentially on the clearance rack at a very fair price. At least what some would deem it. There's somebody out there who would want to dive into that and would want to pay him, despite what they saw the last 2 games, pay him whatever they feel the worth would be at that time. Somebody like the Las Vegas Raiders,
Steelers.
The Steelers potentially. You got to run a certain type of offense for Sam, I think, to make it work. But, so I don't think he and his representation, and in fact, I don't think they should look at the offseason as, well, these last 2 were disasters, and yes, I had a fair amount to do with it, but let's not forget the other 16. And, he's on a 1-10 or he's off a 1-10. It'll be more than that, So if I were them, I would come into it thinking, there are the other 16 too, and there were a lot of good things put on tape. So I can't necessarily say backup status is something to which he will be relegated.
And I agree that that's not the probability, but I think it's now in play as a possibility.
Right.
When 2 games ago, there was no scenario. I mean, it felt like a 0% chance that Sam would be signing a backup caliber deal. Mm-hmm. But now I think that's in play where he could be a backup or could be somebody who has to fight and win through preseason to become the starter in week 1 for another team.
What do you think of the LA Rams?
Well, really, really well coached team, obviously. And my biggest takeaway, Paul, from watching this Rams team twice, and I don't mean this to be a veiled shot at the Vikings, but it's going to come across that way. I don't mean for it to be, look what happens when you nail your drafts. I mean, what this team has done, what the Rams have done through the last 2 drafts, half of the players that you're looking at have come out of these last 2 drafts. Their defense with Braden Fisk and Jared Verse and Cameron Kitchens, an offense that, their starting center is a 6th-round pick. The fact that they are able to get so many starters out of their draft it's just an amazing job that the Rams have done with Les Snead, and it's how you stay viable. And this is the Vikings are an old team by age, and it feels like you look at how they've assembled this Rams roster with a handful of superstars and then incoming rookies who can make an impact. And we've got some of the superstars. We don't have enough of the incoming rookies that make you feel great about where we are compared to a team like the Rams. And that's, I'm watching that game and I'm looking at all these 1st and 2nd year players making big plays. And I'm having a little bit of jealousy. I want that from our team. And we don't have much of that, Paul.
And if that's true, which I agree with, and I believe that it is, Charch, doesn't that kind of end the Sam Darnold conversation in itself, where it is the 23, 24 unrestricted free agents that are coming, this significant dearth of talent in the interior of the offensive line? I think the interior of the defensive line needs to improve. Just about every secondary member, save for Metellus, is going to be a free agent. The Harry, will he or won't he retire conversation is going to be in play. I think in some ways that kind of ends the conversation as it pertains to Sam Darnold right there because of the needs.
I agree. The money has to go at different positions now because we haven't done a good enough job in the draft. So I'm with you on that. And unless Sam is down to the same kinds of contract that he just signed, if he's at $10 million a year, 2 years, and he's going to be your backup, I'm okay. At that point, maybe I'm interested. But you're right. We have dollars that have to go to other needs because we haven't got enough warm bodies through the draft to help this team, unfortunately. One
of several things that, once the third leg of the therapeutic Davenport of love is repaired, because we just were on it so much in this one last cry scenario, and we start looking at things that are ahead of us, the amount of money they have under the cap, which is a rarity around here. It just kind of started last year, and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and the staff provided a laundry list of free agents. Most of them worked. Some of them worked at an incredibly high level. So there's that, and then there's going to be even more to spend this offseason. But then it's Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator, who's done wonderful work here. He's going to interview for head coaching jobs. And I just wonder what's next for the man they call B-Flow.
Yeah, I think it's a coin flip's chance that he's still here. I do believe that he's certainly in the mix, and we know he's going to he'll continue to interview. These last few games won't help his case, but the totality of the season will. And I don't know if he comes back. I don't know if he comes back or not. Your salary cap comment is really, it's very salient. Vikings are almost $70 million under the cap. They have the 6th most cap space going into next year. I think this goes into the column of a sure accomplishment for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. He has gotten us out of cap hell, in no small part because he absolutely made the right call on Kirk Cousins and not getting anywhere near that Falcons deal. And that will help. And that'll be a lot of our excitement in mid-March Paul and Eric, will be about how we spend that $70 million and what players we bring in and can they make an immediate impact for this team. And we'll need to build off of that win to help make up for to this point the lack of players that we've been able to get in the draft.
Well, then the other side of it would be the offensive coach and or the head coach and Kevin O'Connell, and what type of a deal is next for him? Because assumedly, and I mean, I'd be flabbergasted and shocked if he didn't get some form of extension here, wouldn't you?
Agreed.
Okay.
I think it's a done deal.
Right. But see, here's, we didn't get into this at the feast. I had it in the Tolstoy and just in passing, but the more I've thought about it and not knowing the origin of that rumor that popped up the day they were playing the Lions, Jay Glazer just does not wake up one morning and say, I think I'm going to go with this. Or the Jay Glazers, Adam Schefters, .com Toms, Tom Pelisseros. I mean, the Ian Rappaport, the most well-respected when it comes to national breaking news in the NFL. They get so many rumors and they get put on so many leads that they probably go with less than 5%. So they're really good at parsing their way through them to determine, all right, what's the agenda here? And if I go with it, what am I going to need in return? There's just like a prostitution feel to it where, hey, you got something to give me and I got something to give you, and let's just keep it quiet and move on with our lives. It's the timing is if I'm just going to lay it out like this. If that rumor came from Kevin O'Connell's agent, and I don't even know what his agent's name is, shame on him. And shame on everybody involved with that rumor if it came from there. Because it deflects attention from a game that day to secure a 1 seed for a 14-win team. And I don't know where this thing came from, man, but I just know what it was like being in Troy, Michigan at the team hotel when it popped, and then the conversations on the sideline before the game and the conversations after the game and some conversations I had last night with people about the future of the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, which is, I mean, again, I'm 10 of 10 flabbergasted if he does not get a contract extension. But when that thing popped up the way it did, I'm just starting to try to figure out, I'm not going to pursue this, but like how, why at that time? And if it came from anybody associated with Kevin O'Connell's camp, I'm just going to say it as bluntly as I can. Shame on you. That's selfish and it lacks self-awareness, and it jettisons the totality of a team and it takes it from thy to I. Now, I don't have any confirmation that it came from anybody involved in the Kevin O'Connell camp. But again, the best of the best in the NFL don't go with rumors on popular pregame shows unless they feel they have something concrete from a source they know they can trust plugged into a situation like this. You feel me on all this?
100%. And there's almost no way that Jay Glazer does this without talking to Kevin O'Connell and or his agent. And somebody blessed that report. And here's the amazing thing about that timing, Paul. This was before these 2 losses. Kevin O'Connell didn't need any more leverage than he already had. None. He was already going to make and still will make a significant amount of money, a salary increase. He will get the extension. He didn't need any of that. And the decision to do it for whomever made the decision, it was a bad one. It was a first year coaching mistake, I think. And I'm with you. I don't understand what the point of it was, and I don't think it was poorly timed. It was unnecessary. It was a distraction that you didn't need, and it was honestly super weird. So hopefully we get past that. He will get the new deal done. At the end of the day, it probably won't change anything, but it was a weird bump in the road for sure that was not necessary.
Paul Charchian, the co-host of the Friday Football Feast, and also with GuillotineLeagues.com. Nice enough to join 9 to noon. Time for a few more. The con.
Well, as those negotiations take place, and I'm in lockstep, I believe that an extension will take place. But as part of that 10,000-foot view, you got a couple of 13-plus win seasons. You have a couple of playoff games, one you host. and you lose to the Giants, and now what we saw last night. When I'm trying to think about Kevin O'Connell in this story here, and in some ways it feels like I'm looking at a coach where all these expectations over a 14-win season build up to a significant breakdown with these last two games. And in some ways you're astonished by it, and it's just ugly and it's awful. And here we are, one last cry on a Tuesday morning. But is there an element, could you make the case that Kevin O'Connell is vastly overperforming with an under-talented roster? That, the whatever Sam Darnold could be got the very most out of him, but this was always in some ways going to end badly. Can you speak about Kevin O'Connell in that respect? Am I oversimplifying it? What do you think, Charch?
No, I don't agree with that. This is a really talented roster. I give him plenty of credit for the 16 good games, relatively good games that we got out of Sam Darnold, and I'm not taking anything away from Kevin O'Connell for that. But you've got a roster with Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in the league, a first-round pick into Jordan Addison. You've got T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. I mean, these are proven good performers. In the case of all of them, except Addison, people that were performing before Kevin O'Connell got here. Then he just needed to continue to have them play at the level they were at. I don't think that Kevin O'Connell should be getting more praise than he's getting for the totality of this offense that finished 9th in points per game, which is good. It's not amazing. I think, I don't feel like that. The Sam Darnold thing, he absolutely should get credit for. And, God willing, he's going to do great things with JJ McCarthy. But I'm not ready to say that Kevin O'Connell has been underappreciated or that we should suggest that he has gotten more out of this offense than he had any right to, because I think honestly this offense has played up to about the level of its talent and not above that.
Lastly, isn't it just so polarizingly strange that you're a week and change removed from playing for a 1 seed in the conference and a week off in a game where you're a 2.5, 3-point underdog. So at least from that standpoint, a lot of people feel you have a fair chance in the game, then you don't score a touchdown. And then you witness the quarterback's performance missing 5 touchdowns in that game. And then you witness the quarterback's performance the next game. And of course, it's not just Sam Darnold. There are others who had failures. And systemic failures within facets of certain downs and distances and what you're trying to sell and what you're trying to pull off and stuff like that. And it just was a failure the last two. You go from him being elevated on the shoulders of his teammates 2 weeks ago to now looking at the roster and all the free agents and just wondering, all right, well, who's going to be the starting running back next year if it's not Aaron Jones? And what are you going to do with the interior of the offensive line, which has been an age-old talker? And Gilmore and Griffin to a certain extent, and you guys like that, they helped, but that the elasticity or lack thereof eventually can only be stretched so far, as we learned as the season went on. So you got to do some things back there. The linebacker situation is fantastic. You don't have to look at anything there. And so on. It's just strange that when you really, really start to get into the deep diving part of the minutia, there's a fair amount that needs to be done.
Yeah, there is. There is a lot of work to be done. And I will give the coaching staff credit and Kwesi some credit for piecing together enough parts here that the team got as far as it did, which, it didn't necessarily have to. We at this time last year, you couldn't have named the cornerbacks for this team coming into this season. That was all cobbled together on the fly. So there's a ton of work to be done. I think you hit a lot of the big areas of need, unfortunately. And it's not, we don't have simple answers. Right now we have 3 or 4 draft picks plus some compensatory picks coming. Is that
4 picks.
Is that right?
I think they have 4 picks and they'll get some compensatories.
Yeah, that's
but see, that's a talker in its own right that we'll start getting into Friday, that we've kind of gotten into during the course of the season. It's that quasi wobbly stock exchange analogy that I'll use, but I think it's right, and it involves free agency, and we will hit on that during the course of the week and Friday for the Friday Football Feast. On a One Last Cry Tuesday, do you have one last word for the audience that you would like to share? Anything else on your mind? If you say no, that's fine.
I'm just one other thing that I've just really struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
Team's down 18. It's the last play of the third quarter.
Yeah.
39 seconds are left. You're down 18.
Yeah.
We didn't run a play.
Honey. What do you mean?
Come on.
Yeah.
I'm tripping right now. I remember the 3rd and 18. What happened? Explain that.
Well, I think he's talking about the lack
down
of
by
urgency
18
in that
points.
spot.
Yeah.
The lack of
We're
urgency
down by
in that
18
spot.
points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Last play of the third quarter. We're down by 18 points. And with 39 seconds left, and we didn't run a single play. We let the clock run out on the third quarter.
Oh, geez. Okay. I regrettably asked for that one last word. And, Lord knows I got it. All right, brother. You put a lot of time into this football team mentally, and your contributions to the Friday Football Feast are second to none. So thank you very much for that. With all those Buffalo Wild Wings jaunts we made during the course of the year, and I will see you on Friday. Okay.
I will see you in studio
on
Friday, Paul.
That's
Thanks for a great year.
Paul
Bye-bye.
Charchi and GuillotineLeague.com. Second half of the radio show begins with the analyst. Pete Bercich joins 9 to noon around the corner on KFAN.
And the fan would also like to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. Go to KFAN.com and use the keyword bank. You might win $1,000 with the keyword bank at KFAN.com.
Satisfied, whatever it is. Whoop 'em, Ben Ginkle style. That was a highlight of the 2024, along with the 12 Days of Christmas and the Bang the Drum Stabs Friday at the Buffalo Wild Wing Savage. There were so many fun things that transpired with the 2024 Minnesota Vikings.
Van Ginkle style.
Can't wait to see how we whoop them Van Ginkle style in 2025 with Pete Bercich, the analyst for the vast and ever-expanding Minnesota Vikings radio network. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm all right. The Cashman scoop and score, all right, and the apoplectic nature of the reaction by many in that moment. Okay, so from there to where we are now, looking at some things on social media, and I haven't talked to anybody about it, like whose opinions that I or we respect who are in the game, but I'm just hearing and seeing a lot of by the letter of the law, letter of the rule, what Matthew Stafford did should not have been a fumble and should not have been a scoop and score. So what do you think about that?
By the letter?
Yeah. Just following the rule, per the rule, just getting persnickety with it, that it's not a fumble, it's not a scoop and score.
Yeah, I mean, normally it's when the arm is going forward as a pass, not when you're, bent over and just, it's like, yeah, maybe not by the letter of the law, but if that wasn't an absolute, I'm getting sacked desperation, just try to get rid of it type throw, if it was even a throw, right? I mean, he just threw it and put his arm out there and let it all just stinks to me. And then you put on top of that the face mask that magically was called by on Cashman too later on, which I think that is.
I forgot about that.
Still,
I just wanted to talk to Stafford
I think,
first.
of all the things that happened to me, the one that pisses me off the most because it's like, what did you see it on the screen?
Right.
I mean, honestly,
which you
no
can't
one threw
do.
A flag. They just kind of huddled up together like they got a little, buzzer from the sideline and said, "Oh yeah, we got a face mask penalty." And it's, that whole thing. It didn't help. But then again, we didn't really do anything to really change the momentum per se in that regard. And it would have been a nice opportunity, but offensively, would we still have had the juice to put up what we needed to anyway?
Nordo, on Vikings Fan Line, and you watching the game, listening to the game, seeing the play, I'm going to say, speaking for you, being 10 of 10 frustrated or upset like all of us were, including those on the radio, with what transpired at the moment. Did anybody lay anything out, where it's like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but... as the letter of the law goes, or the rule itself with that Stafford moment?
Yeah, it was just simply the idea that it's an awful loophole in the rule from the standpoint that the ball, it was not a lost grip in a fumble sense. There's this weird kind of somewhat feigned motion. As Pete said, he's in the grasp, he's going down, he's staring at the turf. He's not trying to throw it to Puka Nacua. But by the letter of the law, as annoying as it is, same thing happened against Detroit, by the way. Goff just fires it into the back of one of his linemen,
wow.
but then this running back from 5 yards away is emerging from the mist, and he's in the area. So this is 2 weeks in a row now where the obscurity of the rule and kind of the subjective nature in which a ref can deploy it is kind of bitten us. And so Puka technically in the area. But how long was Grenard on him? I mean, that's 1.5 real-time seconds somewhere in that. How do they subjectively decide that play is over? He wasn't moving forward. He wasn't getting out of it. And so at the least, I felt that should have been a sack. The intentional grounding thing is open to me again, except for the letter of the law. So it was a lot of people truly just kind of shrugging their shoulders and going, yeah, I guess, but man, if you don't change something in the offseason, if you don't adjust that, it's absolutely, it's a farce. And the way as fired up as you guys were, I was still on my couch at the house at the time. I mean, how big is that moment? And maybe the offense, to Pete's point, maybe they still don't have the juice. Maybe Sam's still seeing things a little cloudily and still takes all those sacks and holds onto the ball forever. In that freaking moment, if you're saying extra point makes it 10-10, I still believe that this game looks vastly different.
Peter, your reaction to the diatribe?
I agree that he was already in the grasp of Grenard at that time when he, like I said during the broadcast. I mean, he was looking at the ground. He was looking at the ground not because he wanted to, it was because he was getting taken to the ground, and it's kind of like a reaction to being sacked, is trying to get the football out. And when Bill Belichick says the defenses can't get any type of call ever these days, then it's taking a rule and pushing it too far. I mean,
I will say this though, Pete. In totality, that face mask on Cashman, and it's almost like they asked. It's almost like they asked Stafford, like, "Did you see a face mask?" I'm not sure. Stafford's like, "Of course," and then they dropped the flag after the play had been completed.
Yeah, and they're gonna lie. I mean, I don't know if the pool reporter bit, which is I'll find it somehow, but I mean there's a pool reporter for the home team, like Kevin Seifert's done it here. I don't even know if it's the home team, but Seifert generally is a representative here, where John Hussey, the referee, will give an explanation for how things worked. And if he says an official came up to me and said, "I think we missed a face mask there," he's absolutely lying through his teeth.
Yeah, it would not behoove him to be honest in those spots,
because and it's against the rules to see something on a jumbotron and drop a flag. Officials can't do that. And Pete, that's what they did.
Right. It's very Viking-esque of us to complain about officials after a loss, but this needs to be weeded out and discussed, because as bad as the non-fumble incomplete pass receiver in the area throw that apparently Stafford made, which is ridiculous, that face mask is really that's an abomination. I mean, that to me, I don't even know where to begin with that. When you are calling penalties after a play when nobody threw a flag, nobody even threw a flagpole. right? From the same group of officials that whenever it's even close to looking like a fumble, they'll just let the play out so they can go back and look at the replay. They won't make a call. They'll automatically throw the black beanbag and say, that was a fumble. All turnovers are reviewed, so we're going to go back and take a look at it. And we've seen it happen 5 times to us alone this season. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Wait, go ahead.
No. I mean, come on. These are NFL officials, right? And I've never seen a group of men more afraid to make a call about anything they just want to disappear in the playoffs. They quit calling pass interference penalties. They swallow their whistles in key moments in games. Just ask a Packer fan what happened. If you look at what happened in the end zone when there was an obvious pass interference, but no flag. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible what's going on, and the way that game was officiated was really, really bad.
Hey.
And because of the way we lost, it all sounds like sour grapes.
Nah.
But I mean, honestly, from anybody I don't know, would you want to be a coach and have your career on the line and have it officiated by crews like that? I mean, your job is on the line, and that guy's out there saying, "No, that wasn't a forced fumble. No, that was incomplete. There was a guy in the area, even though he was on his way down." And we magically saw a face mask penalty, ironically against the team that we get a face mask in the end. They showed it on TV. They're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, this happened 8 weeks ago." When Darnold got his head almost ripped off, and they're like, no face mask. We didn't see any. Game over. Goodbye.
Well,
ridiculous.
FEWA, Fairness and Whining Act, just Pete and I and Nordo in no way are saying these infractions change the outcome of the game. But I'm going to be straight is whether the Stafford Cashman situation to the letter of the rule was accurate or not. If that happens, the game changes, the momentum changes, and somebody that's been delivering blows takes one. And then now we get to see for the first time in 2 games against the Rams how they respond to something like that. But we never got that opportunity. So that potentially changed that facet of the game. I appreciate you, man, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Yeah, but I mean, that's another thing too. Is just Paul. We've been calling games for a long time, and you think the officiating is getting better or worse?
Worse,
right? It's like exactly. And part of it is the way that they've interpreted and implemented rules to make you got to make a judgment call in a split second. They're not making their jobs any easier. But
I would go a different route.
It's ridiculous.
My route would be, I believe that some of the people, not referees, but some of the officials, line, side judge, back judge, umpire, all that, some of those being hired are leaping levels leaping certain protocols and levels to get to the highest level more quickly and swiftly than anybody in the history of the NFL. And quite honestly, many of them are overmatched. And it's playing into what we're talking about now, but that's a conversation for a different time. Love you, buddy. Call you soon.
All right, see you.
That's a Pete Bercich, analyst for the Minnesota Vikings or Radio Network.
Hey, Pierre Nordo, this is Dan calling on the road back from Arizona. I was actually at the game last night, and I just wanted to say shout out to all the Vikings fans that were there in the building last night.
That's awesome.
We had a real opportunity to make it a home field advantage, and unfortunately didn't have anything to cheer for until that fumble recovery touchdown that should have been. It could have been a huge momentum swing. But anyway, great season. Optimistic for next year. J.J. McCarthy era starts today. Skol.
They're all over this already. He's JJ! And assumedly that was the case on Fan Line last night too, right?
Absolutely it was, yes.
Okay, what? Wow, thank you for that talk back. What an absolute 8-day buzzkill for the most dedicated fans of the Minnesota Vikings. And simply, it's when I say the most dedicated, it's not excluding those who don't have means to go to Detroit or the Valley of No Fun, or don't have the time, or they have obligations or responsibilities, or they love the team, but they, don't want to deal with that clipping penalty. We're not developing fan power rankings here. I'm saying what an absolute 8-day buzzkill for the I'm going to use most dedicated fans taking time out of their schedules and their lives and income and everything to get to State Farm Stadium or get to Ford Field. And the buzzkill is you do that, and some did it twice, and you just get smacked.
Yeah.
You get smacked at Ford Field and swarmed in the Valley of the Sun, and you get handled. The 2024 Minnesota Vikings went, with those wins we talked about earlier, and really a class test for the metaphorical equine athletes against whom you were racing and what type of race it was. The 2024 Minnesota Vikings went AFC South, Kirk O'Chains, Kyler the Creator, and those punt passes, and over the hill A-Rod for dough, and there's more. And then against two of the best, Detroit and Los Angeles had nothing to offer when it mattered most. That's fair. That's not bitching about something. That is a fair analysis of the totality of the Minnesota Vikings season, beginning with Dimes, who's now in the Covenant, might even be the quarterback next year if the kid's knee's not ready. From Dimes all the way through Stafford, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think it's fair now that we've watched them, we've listened to them, we've analyzed them, and we've seen what they did or did not do. You sweep the AFC South, cool. Houston won a playoff game against the LA Chargers. Kirk O'Chains, Kyler the Creator, over the hill A-Rod, that was the dough. But when it comes to the show, it's like the show, if the show's going to be the two most important games, which are supposed to be the dough, then there was no show to the show. So,
well, and I think part of that too, you mentioned it, ultimately they lose to Detroit and the Rams back-to-back early, and then they just did it again. I didn't necessarily feel, and you hit on it, I think, perfectly, and I'm still trying to kind of frame it in my own mind.
What happened?
That the Rams, both the Rams and the Lions, even the Lions with the injury issues, the way they've maintained it and managed that situation has been very impressive. Those are two teams that are better now even than when they were, I believe, for the most part, early on week 7 and week 8.
Yeah.
The Vikings actually in both games performed more poorly against those teams. The shootout that goes the wrong way against Detroit, it's a short night and Puka's back, and we're all just kind of astonished that he'd been doing leg weights and ankle weights on the beach, and now he's ready to go on Thursday night.
Yeah.
And you felt like, okay, well, tough beats in those situations, but this time we're more prepared for it. There's no guesswork. It's our best versus theirs. We actually came up limp in both those opportunities additionally.
Or lame, as the horse racing analogy would go, because that's in horse racing, there are levels of class. You have claimers, allowance, stakes, Kentucky Derby, Breeders' Cup, Arc de Triomphe, all that. And the Vikings stepped up in class.
Correct.
When they got into the Motor City Mile.
Yep.
Or they got into the lap around Los Angeles, which actually was the Valley of No Fun. And
we needed Amy's challenge and we got Tiger D.
Those teams didn't go Secretariat on the Vikings, but the Vikings were not up to the class jump.
No, they weren't.
Doesn't mean they won't be up for it next year. Maybe they needed the race. But I think that's a fair way to look at it. I didn't get loud about this yesterday with you or in the game last night because it's not really for the game call. But, I've been thinking about this for a little while, just like, earlier in the season, the middle of the season, Jacksonville, Tennessee, all that kind of stuff. We were like, is Sam who they say Sam is? Is it the low-hanging fruit, cliched Cinderella pumpkin bit?
Right.
Well, yeah, the pumpkin emerged at the worst time. So, yeah, it was that. But, there was a time fairly to analyze and say, are you who they say you are?
Yep.
Are you who they say you were? And you can't get around it. The answer was no. But why? Then you analyze the stock against whom he's playing, and you put that in there. And that plays into it. And then you analyze the level of talent and the stakes racing equity that has happened of late. That plays into it. And it still doesn't mean, yeah, he's who they say he was. No, he's not. He outplayed that. Okay, that low hanger, that crap is in the rearview mirror. But the one who, we're a week and change, 2 weeks removed from saying, well, let's be straight here. Let's be honest, man. I mean, let's just pragmatically break this down realistically. Quarterbacks playing the way he's playing right now are not permitted to leave buildings.
It's true.
We can't say that right now.
No, we cannot.
So
but I also still wonder, and you mentioned, you're right. He has absolutely played his way to the point where you can push a lot of the super negative Jet stuff into the rearview mirror. Absolutely. But there still has to be an element in this, and this is something he'll face as we get closer to free agency and sneaky combine conversations and such take place.
Yep.
The unique connection that he had in this building with this coach and this team in this situation, and if that can or cannot be replicated elsewhere. So is he better than his worst in his Jets days? Absolutely. But is he someone that you're ready via free agency to pull him away from this situation and this building and this coach, and you think you can replicate that in Las Vegas or wherever? You can throw the teams out, plenty of time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That is a massive question. Right now, again, as I said it earlier, I still feel, I think that the head coach earns a lot of, he should deserve a ton of credit, get a ton of credit for putting a platform for Sam to stand on and perform the way he did. And that pumpkin moment, I didn't think it'd be this bad, but it was sitting there. That's why I didn't want to talk about the future and all of that. Just what would it look like when it did happen?
Yeah,
it looked awful.
I'm glad you said that. Sorry to clip, but see, that's why we always said is things are so good, rich, bountiful, and fun right now that let's cast our gaze to that when we can analyze the totality of the story.
Right.
And it seemed like a little bit of a cop-out, simply because that's why I started saying, let's just be real with this. When you're going 15 touchdowns against 1 interception over 4 games, and you're winning every game, and your mobility is something nobody saw coming, well, the coaches may have, but, I mean, he was fantastic with the mobility piece.
Yeah.
Players like that don't leave facilities.
No, they don't.
Unless they're like, well, no, I mean, unless I get 150 guaranteed, I'm out. All right, cool, go get it. But that's why we harped on and pounded on with this individual. You have to let it go to the end.
Yep.
And the answer will reveal itself. And it did.
Bug on the windshield, my friend. Bug on the windshield.
Nordo and Lavelle carry you through the final hour. I'll be back with you tomorrow when we rise and shine at 9. Thank you very much for listening. God bless everybody for and great, deeply rooted appreciation for everybody who listens to Vikings games whenever you do. We understand watching the game on TV is what a majority of people do, but Vikings broadcasts are important to a lot of people. And for Pete Bercich and Ben Lieber and all of us involved with it, it's been a treat serving you by calling the games this year. It's a lot of fun. We love this team. This one for me, this is top 2, along with the 2009 season. But the behind the scenes group with all the newbies who came in and how cultures collaborated and new became norm. This was. I'll think about it a little more. I know you're going to be on pins and needles waiting for me to share that tomorrow. All right, 3-2. But this one cuts deeply for me because of all the people associated with this organization who were new, I just really, really enjoy and really, really like praying with them on the sidelines, getting to know them and their families behind the scenes, and just watching and enduring on the side things they go through that people just don't get a chance to see because it's such an abnormal life with the cash and then the violence that goes into the game, and the emotion and the adrenaline. And this was a special one from my standpoint as the announcer for the Minnesota Vikings and doing some ancillary stuff for them. Very, very special group, very, very special head coach. And I'll miss the 2024 season while looking forward to the 2025. But thank everybody. We thank everybody for listening to the Vikings games on KFAN when you did. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.